The void of space was silent, yet it pulsed with tension. Out beyond the rings of a dying planet, a shadow moved vast, winged form gliding effortlessly among the stars. Its scales shimmered like molten silver, reflecting starlight with every slow, deliberate beat of its colossal wings. Eyes the size of suns blazed amber in the dark, and each exhale sent ripples of plasma curling into the void. A dragon. Not a legend from Earth's past, but a living terror of the cosmos. The fleets had chased it for months. Whispers of a star worm that devoured entire outposts spread like wildfire, half myth, half truth, but here it was, undeniable, gliding through the debris of an abandoned station, as if mocking those who dared follow. Target sighted, came the clipped voice of Admiral Corrin over the comms. His face was hard as steel, his crown-like helm reflecting the glow of the tactical displays. All ships close formation. Do not let it escape. Dozens of cruisers shifted into position, their engines roaring, red targeting grids lit up. Across the void, all locked on the beast, the dragon turned its massive head, golden eyes narrowing as if it felt the weight of every gun trained on it. And then it roared. Sound had no place in the vacuum, but through the hull plating and null link interfaces, every pilot felt it like thunder rolling through their bones. Like the fury of 1,000 storms, fire, lances of plasma streaked through the darkness, converging on the beast. Explosions blossomed against its scales, lighting up the void. The dragon twisted, wings folding, tail lashing. And with a single beat it launched forward, faster than seemed possible for something so massive. Its body cut through the formation, colliding with a frigate. Metal screamed as the ship was torn in half, flames and bodies spilling into the abyss. Panic rippled through the fleet. Some ships veered too close to one another, their shields sparking. As the dragon wove between them, it was no mindless animal. It fought with cunning, its movements deliberate, striking where the lines were weakest. Still, the fleet pressed on. Nets of iron energy burst outward, designed to bind and slow. The dragon bellowed again, plasma streaming from its jaws, incinerating a corvette in a heartbeat. But the nets tangled round its wings, dragging it down, slowing its desperate thrashing inside. The flagship, Admiral Corrin's eyes gleamed with triumph. Do not kill it. The king demands it alive. Cripple it. Bind it, bring it home. The battle raged for what felt like hours, ships burning, bodies drifting among the stars. At last, the dragon's movement slowed, wounded, exhausted. Its mighty wings folded under the weight of the energy nets. With one final, defiant roar, it collapsed, drifting helplessly as the cruisers closed in round it. The beast had fallen. Chains thicker than starship hulls were wrapped round its body, shimmering with gravitational locks. Slowly, painfully, it was dragged into the belly of the flagship, its massive head slamming against the reinforced hangar floor. The soldiers stood in awe, many trembling at the sight, even subdued. The dragon radiated power. Its eyes glared with such fury that hardened warriors turned away, unable to meet its gaze. Admiral Corrin stepped forward, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The king will have his prize. We will tame this monster, and from its fire, our empire will be reborn. The dragon's chest rumbled with a sound that shook the hangar. Its jaws parted just enough for smoke to curl between its fangs. Bound, beaten, but unbroken. The war was over. The true battle, the battle for its soul, was about to begin. The flagship's hangar trembled as the captured dragon was lowered into its restraints. Chains anchored into the ship's very skeleton clinked and groaned with each shallow movement the beast made. Its wings twitched, torn and scorched from the fleet's weapons, yet still they radiated majesty. Even broken, it was terrifying. The crew avoided looking at it too long. Some whispered prayers under their breath. Others refused to turn their backs on it, convinced that if they did, the monster would somehow snap its bonds and tear them apart. But Admiral Koran walked with the calmness of a man who believed he had conquered the impossible. This creature, he said as he inspected the restraints, will change the fate of our empire. The king will see what his fleet has delivered. Him, not just a beast, but a weapon of eternity. The journey back to the capital world, Aeloria, was long and tense. Every day the dragon tested its chains. Every night the sound of its restless growls echoed through the flagship's corridors. Soldiers had to be rotated constantly. None lasting more than a few hours on guard duty, the beast seemed to stare into their very souls, daring them to look away. Some swore they heard whispers in their minds when they got too close. Others dreamed of fire, wings, and stars tearing apart like paper. Rumors spread quickly. Was the dragon intelligent? Did it speak in a language no one could understand? Or was it simply so ancient that its very presence twisted the human mind? When the flagship finally descended upon Aloria, the planet lit up with celebration. Crowds filled the plazas of the capital city, craning their necks to see the colossal silhouette of the dragon suspended beneath the ship as it was lowered into the grand arena, the same place where gladiators once fought for survival. The arena's walls shook as the dragon's body hit the ground, bound by chains thicker than towers. Locked into stone pylons glowing with energy runes, for the first time in generations. The Empire had something greater than armies, greater than fleets. They had a dragon. The king himself emerged onto the balcony above the arena, draped in robes of starlight and gold. His voice carried across the thunderous cheers of the people. Behold, he declared, arms raised high, the starworm. The beast that once defied empires and destroyed worlds. Today, it kneels before us. Today, we prove that no force in this universe is beyond our grasp. The crowd roared with approval. Fireworks streaked into the skies, bursting in radiant showers of light. Children laughed and pointed, while soldiers saluted with trembling hands. Yet, even in its chains, the dragon lifted its massive head and glared at the king with eyes that burned hotter than the sun. The cheers faltered for a heartbeat. Thousands of voices fell into an easy silence as the beast let out a low, rumbling growl that rattled the bones of everyone in the arena. Smoke curled from its nostrils. Though bound, though beaten, its defiance was unshaken. The king's smile did not falter. He leaned forward on the balcony and said, "This beast will not die. No, it will live. It will serve. And when our enemies see it fight for the glory of Aeloria, they will kneel before us or burn." Training the dragon was another matter. Entirely dot engineers constructed massive rigs to keep it confined, while scholars debated endlessly over ancient texts, hoping to find clues about taming such creatures. Priests declared it a god in chains, warning of doom if the king's arrogance went unchecked. But the king ignored them all. He ordered the finest gladiators, beastmasters, and sorcerers of the empire to attempt the impossible, break the dragons. Wildot days turned into weeks. Each attempt ended in failure. Chains melted, handlers burned, entire squads thrown across the arena like dolls. The dragon never submitted, never lowered its head in obedience. Its amber eyes burned with the fury of a star, and each attempt to command it only deepened its hatred. Yet amid the chaos, a whisper spread among the lower ranks of the city. One day, as the dragon lay chained beneath the arena, a child, a son, girl barely 12 years old, wandered too close. She was not a soldier, not a beastmaster, not a king, just a child. And the dragon did not strike. Instead, it watched her with strange stillness. She whispered something no one could hear what, and the dragon's rumbling ceased. its molten gaze softening for the briefest of moments. The gods dragged the girl away, terrified of what might happen. But a seed of doubt had been planted in the heart of the Empire. Perhaps this beast could not be tamed with whips and chains. Perhaps it required something far more dangerous, trust, above it all. The king smiled from his throne, watching his city swell with pride. He had no patience for whispers, no time for doubt. To him, the dragon was already his dot, but in the depths of the arena, behind glowing chains and stone pylons. The creature's chest rumbled with a secret fire. It was waiting, watching Dot, and when the time came, it would burn the Empire to ash. The dragon had become a spectacle. Every evening, thousands gathered at the Grand Arena to watch handlers fail in their attempts to tame it. The people loved the show chain sparking, soldiers screaming, the beast roaring with fire that turned sand into glass. But rumors of the girl spread faster than the king liked. Whispers moved through the alleys of Aeloria. A child walked close to the dragon, and it did not kill her. Some called her blessed, others cursed. The priests declared her a sign of divine intervention. The king, however, saw something far more useful. Her name was Lyra. Lyra was brought to the palace the next day, dragged from her servants' quarters and presented before the king's advisers. She stood barefoot on the marble floor, her patched dress clinging to her small frame. Though she trembled, her eyes were steady-wide, green and unblinking. "Majesty," said Admiral Corden. Bowing deeply, the beast reacts differently. To her, perhaps she is the key. The king studied her like one would study a blade testing for sharpness. "You are the girl who stood before the dragon." "Yes," Lyra whispered. "And why?" He asked, leaning forward. "Do you think it spared you?" She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't hate everyone. Maybe it only hates the ones who heard it." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. The king laughed a short, cold laugh, spoken like a child. "But perhaps there is wisdom in it." He turned to his council. "If the beast will not yield to chains, then let it yield to innocence. Put her in the arena with it. Let us see what happens." The next evening, Lyra was escorted into the Grand Arena. Tens of thousands watched in breathless silence as the girl walked barefoot across the scorched sand. Guards stood ready on the walls, weapons primed should the creature lash out. The dragon was chained as always, its massive head lowered near the ground, smoke curling from its nostrils. Its golden eyes locked onto Lyra the moment she stepped into the ring. The crowd gasped, expecting fire, but no fire came. Lyra approached slowly, one trembling step after another. She raised her hand as if greeting a wild dog. The dragon's growl rumbled through the arena, deep and resonant. The gods tensed. But the girl didn't flinch. "I'm not here to hurt you," she whispered, though her voice carried strangely far in the silence. "I know you're angry, but I'm not like them." The dragon's eyes narrowed. Its chains rattled as it shifted, lowering its snout until it was only a breath away from her. Lyra stretched out her hand and laid it against the warm, scarred scales of its jaw. The arena erupted into chaos. The crowd shouted in disbelief, some cheering, some screaming. The priests wailed warnings of blasphemy, while the king rose to his feet, his face unreadable. In the arena, however, all was calm. The dragon let out a low, steady rumble, like a mountain sighing. It leaned ever so slightly into her hand. It was not submission, but it was something closer. Recognition. That night, Lyra was not returned to the servants' quarters. She was kept in the palace, given food and a chamber larger than any she had ever seen. But she felt no joy. She knew she was not being rewarded. She was being used. The king summoned her privately. You have done what no soldier, no sorcerer, no beastmaster could. The dragon tolerates you. This is your gift to the Empire, child. Lyra lowered her head. And if I don't want to, the king's smile was sharp as a blade, then you will die. And the dragon will burn with you. But if you obey me, you will be remembered as the savior of Aeloria. His words were honeyed poison, and Lyra knew it. Yet she also knew the truth. She had no choice over the weeks. She was forced to visit the dragon daily. Sometimes she spoke to it, telling stories of her life before the palace. Sometimes she simply sat in silence, the beast's golden eyes fixed on her. The gods and scholars took notes, marveling at every subtle change in the dragon's demeanor. But something else happened to something none of them noticed. The dragon began to hum at night. A low vibration that resonated through the arena. Walls, Lyra, lying in her chamber above, could feel it in her bones. She started to dream of fire and flight, of stars rushing past her in a blur of light. When she woke, she swore she could still feel the wind in her hair. It was as if the dragon was speaking to her not in words, but in feelings, in visions. And she understood one thing clearly. It was waiting, waiting for her. The king saw the dragons, calmness as a victory. Soon, he told his generals, we will unleash it upon our enemies, with the girl as its tether. No empire, no fleet, no world will dare defy us, but in the dragon's gaze. Lyra saw a different truth. It was not broken. It was not tamed. It was patient, and when the chains fell, it would not fight for the empire. It would fight against it. The nights came heavier after that. Lyra could no longer sleep without feeling the dragon's presence in her bones. Every time she closed her eyes, vision surged through her mind, worlds burning. Stars collapsing, endless skies filled with fire and wings. At first, she thought they were nightmares, but the longer she dreamed, the more she understood. They were not dreams at all. They were memories. The dragon was showing her what it had seen. One night, Lyra woke in her chamber drenched, in sweat, her hands trembling. She had seen entire fleets, armies greater than the Empire could imagine, reduced to ash with a single breath of fire. She had seen other dragons, 2, dozens, hundreds, their roars shaking galaxies. But they were gone now, all of them, save this one, the last of its kind. When she pressed her hand to her chest, she swore she could still feel the heat of its fire inside her. She whispered into the darkness, "Why me?" And though no voice answered, she felt the dragon's hum echo in her ribcage, steady and deep. Somehow, she understood its meaning. Because you listen, the king, meanwhile, grew restless. His scholars reported no progress in taming the dragon. Without Lyra present, his beast masters had all but given up, and the priests begged him daily to destroy the creature before it destroyed them. But the king had seen the crowds. He had heard their cheers when the dragon lowered its head near the girl, and he had tasted the power that might be his if he could harness it. One morning, he summoned Lyra to his throne room. "You dream of it, don't you?" he asked casually, as if commenting on the weather. Lyra froze. "Dream? Of what?" "The beast," the king said, his eyes narrowing. "You are tied to it. Do not deny it. I see it in your eyes. Every time you leave its side, you carry its fire with you. Tell me what it shows you." Lyra's heart pounded. She wanted to lie, but something in the king's gaze made her hesitate. "It shows me stars and other dragons." The king leaned forward. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Are they alive?" She shook her head. "No. Only this one remains." The king sat back. Disappointment etched across his face. But then a slow, dangerous smile crept across his lips. Then this one will be enough. One dragon can conquer more worlds than any fleet. He waved his hand dismissively. Go. Continue your bond. But know this, child, if you betray me, I will feed you to the beast myself. That evening, Lyra was taken once more into the arena. The dragon lay chained in the center, its head resting on the scorched sand, when it lifted its gaze to meet hers. Something shifted inside her chest. She was no longer afraid. She knelt beside its snout and whispered, "They want to use you. They want to make you fight for them." The dragon rumbled, smoke curling from its nostrils for a heartbeat. Lyra thought it might roar, but instead she felt words, not spoken, but pressed directly into her mind. "And what do you want?" Lyra gasped. The voice was deep, ancient, layered with echoes that weren't entirely human. She hesitated, then whispered, "I want you to be free." The dragon's molten eyes burned brighter. "Then we're the same. From that night on, the bond deepened. The dragon no longer showed her random flashes of memory. It showed her secrets, weaknesses in the chains, patterns in the guards' patrols, tunnels beneath the arena long forgotten by the king's engineers. And Lyra realized the dragon was planning. It could break free, perhaps even destroy the city, but it was waiting for the right moment, waiting for her. But the king's patience was wearing thin. He ordered a test, a mock battle in the arena. Chains would be loosened just enough for the dragon to move, but not enough to escape. Soldiers armed with plasma spears and armored beasts were sent into the sandpit. The king wanted to see his prize in action. Lyra was forced to watch from the balcony beside him, her stomach twisting with dread. The gates opened. The soldiers charged. And the dragon moved. Even chained, it was fury incarnate. Its tail swept across the sand, shattering armor. Its wings sent gales of wind that toppled whole squads. And when it opened its jaws, the breath of fire that erupted turned night into day, reducing everything in its path to molten ruin. The crowd roared in ecstasy. The king grinned, his eyes gleaming. "Do you see, child? With this beast, I will be emperor of not just Aeloria, but the galaxy." Lyra said nothing. She could not tear her gaze away from the dragon, for in that moment, as it fought against its chains, their eyes locked again. And she felt it in her bones, a promise carved into her soul. This will end in fire. Lyra couldn't shake the sound of chains groaning against stone, the clash of armor, and the roar of fire that still rang in her ears. The mock battle replayed in her dreams each night. But it wasn't the soldiers' screams or the crowd's cheers that haunted her. It was the dragon's eyes, fierce and broken, locked on her as if demanding, "You must choose." Life in the palace shifted after the test. The king was drunk on victory. He held feasts in the dragon's honor, boasting to ambassadors that no army in the galaxy could stand against his living weapon. Nobles drank wine as strong as fire and toasted to future conquests. But beneath the laughter and applause, fear festered. Soldiers whispered of comrades burned to ash during the mock battle. Priests muttered of omens, of prophecies that spoke of a fire that would consume empires. And among the servants, the story of Lyra spread like wildfire. The dragon listens to her. She speaks to it. Maybe she can free it. Lyra tried to ignore the whispers, but late at night, when she lay in her chamber with the dragon's hum vibrating faintly through the walls, she wondered if they were right. One evening, as the sun bled red over the spires of Aeloria, she slipped down into the lower tunnels of the arena. She knew the guards' rotations now the dragon had shown her in visions. She timed her steps with their patrols, her heart pounding with every shadow she darted past. When she reached the chamber where the beast lay chained, she stopped to catch her breath. The sight never failed to steal it away. The dragon's body glistened in the torchlight, its wings folded like mountains of steel and flame. Its golden eyes opened the moment she entered. "You came." The voice thundered in her skull. Yet it was softer than before, like a whisper only she could hear. Lyra approached until she could press her hand to its scarred jaw. "They'll never let you go," she murmured. "The king. He'll use you until there's nothing left." Smoke curled from the dragon's nostrils. "He thinks I am his prize, but he is mistaken. Tell me, shall do you wish for his throne to burn?" Lyra's heart hammered. She should have said no, she should have run. But instead, she whispered, "Yes." That night, the dragon showed her more than dreams. She saw the city from above, its towers like jagged teeth rising from the earth. She saw the hidden tunnels beneath the arena, the ones the architects had long forgotten. She saw weak points in the chains, where heat and pressure could make them snap. And finally, she saw herself, standing beside the dragon, not as a prisoner, not as a tool, but as an ally. When she woke, she knew what she had to do. The king was not blind. He saw the change in Lyra, the way her eyes lingered on the dragon, the way she no longer flinched at its roars. He summoned her again to his throne. "You spend too much time with it," he said, voice like steel. "Do not forget, girl, it is a beast, and beasts must serve or die." Lyra met his gaze, her voice steady. "What if it never serves? What if it only pretends?" The king's smile was cruel. "Then I will break it, and if it resists, I will break you too." That night, as torches flickered against the palace walls, Lyra was approached by someone unexpected, a palace guard, his armor worn, his eyes darting nervously. "I know what you're doing," he whispered when they were alone. Lyra's blood ran cold. "I'm not doing anything." The man shook his head. "Don't lie. I've seen how it looks at you. I've seen how you change when you come back from the arena." He glanced over his shoulder, then leaned closer. "Listen, you're not the only one who wants him gone. The king's greed will doom us all. There are others who whisper of rebellion. If you mean to free the beast, we'll help you." Lyra stared, stunned into silence. For the first time, she realized the Empire's chains weren't as strong as they seemed. Later that night, she returned to the dragon, her mind racing with the guard's words. She pressed her hand against its scales and whispered, "There are people who will help us, people who want the king gone." The dragon's rumble shook the walls. "Then the time is near. You must be ready, Lyra. When the chains break, there will be no turning back." Lyra closed her eyes, her hand trembling against the beast's jaw. She was just a child, a servant plucked from the shadows. But in that moment, she felt the weight of fire in her veins and for the first time, she wasn't afraid. The palace never truly slept, even in the deep hours of night. The corridors glowed with lantern light and echoed with the footsteps of guards. But Lyra moved through them like a shadow, her bare feet making no sound, her small frame slipping. Behind pillars and tapestries, the guard who had approached her, his name was Darren, waited near the servants' passages. His armor was stripped of rank, hidden beneath a cloak. When she arrived, he gave a short nod and motioned for her to follow. They descended into the Undercity, where the marble towers of Aeloria gave way to damp tunnels and forgotten stone. Here, whispers thrived. Here, the Empire's reach was weakest. Darren led her into a cellar lit by a single, flickering lamp. Inside were a dozen others, former soldiers, ragged servants, even a priest whose robes were torn but whose eyes burned with conviction. "This is her," Darren said. "The girl." All eyes turned to Lyra. She felt the weight of their stares pressing against her chest. But she lifted her chin. She speaks to it. Darren continued. She is the key. The priest stepped forward. Child, do you know what you carry? That beast is no simple animal, it is a remnant of the first flame, the fire that shaped worlds. The king thinks to bind it. He is a fool. But you, his voice lowered to a reverent whisper, you may be its chosen. Lyra swallowed. Hard. I don't want to be chosen. I just don't want it to suffer, or to burn because of him. A murmur rippled through the group. One of the rebels, a scarred woman with a soldier's stance, slammed her fist on the table. Then we free it. The king bleeds the people dry, and now he means to wield a god like a sword. If the dragon rises, so do we. The plan began to take shape that very night. For weeks, Lyra walked a dangerous path. By day, she was the king's prize tether, paraded before the nobles and forced to sit in the arena as the dragon enjoyed endless tests. By night, she met with the rebels in hidden cellars, mapping tunnels, marking guard routes, memorizing the locations of the power crystals that fuel the dragon's restraints. The dragon, too, whispered guidance into her mind. Beneath the western wall, there is a crack where roots pierce stone. Through it, a tunnel runs, old, forgotten. When the time comes, lead them there. Lyra memorized every detail, her heart beating faster with each secret shared. But the king was not blind. One afternoon, as Lyra stood beside the dragon in the arena, the king descended from his balcony, a rare move that sent the guards stiff with their knees. His boots crunched on the scorched sand as he approached her. You have grown bold, he said, his voice soft. Dangerous. Lyra bowed her head quickly. Majesty. The king circled her like a wolf. I hear whispers in my palace, whispers of unrest, soldiers vanishing from their posts, servants slipping away in the night. He stopped before her, his eyes sharp as blades. Tell me, girl, do you know anything of this? Her breath caught. The dragon shifted against its chains, its growl rolling through the arena like distant thunder. Lyra forced her voice to remain steady. No, Majesty, I only know the dragon. The king's smile was then cold. See that it stays that way. For if I learn otherwise, I will not burn you. I will burn them that night. Lyra's hands shook as she recounted the encounter to Darren and the rebels, summoned her to flee before suspicion turned to proof. But the priest silenced them. The king grows afraid, he said. That is good. Fear makes men careless. Lyra, however, could not shake the image of the king's eyes that saw too much, eyes that promised ruin. She pressed her palms against her face. Whispering to herself, the dragon's voice thundered, softly in his call. You doubt. She lowered her hands. I'm scared. Good. Fear is fire. If you carry it well, it will burn your enemies, not you. She closed her eyes, drawing strength from its presence. When the dragon's chains rattled faintly in the distance, as if in answer. Soon, the plan was simple, but its risk was death during the next festival. When the arena would be filled with cheering crowds, and the king would demand another display of the dragon's strength, the rebels would strike. Lyra would use her bond to calm the beast long enough for the restraint's crystals to be shattered. Then the dragon would rise, and fire would decide the fate of Aeloria. That night, as Lyra lay awake staring at the ceiling of her chamber, she whispered to the silence, if this fails, we die. The dragon's hum vibrated through her bones, steady as a heartbeat. If it fails, child, then we burn together. The city of Aloria glittered like a jewel on the day of the festival. Banners of crimson and gold streamed from the palace towers, their fabric snapping in the breeze. Merchants spilled into the streets, hawking roasted meats and sweet wines. while musicians filled the air with frantic melodies meant to mask the unease beneath the celebration. For all its beauty, the day was born of cruelty. The people knew it. Every year, the Festival of Chains honored the king's victories by showcasing blood in the arena. This year, however, the spectacle promised more than gladiators. Rumors whispered through the alleys, rumors of fire and wings, of a dragon bound by man. Lyra moved through the corridors of the palace with a hollow chest. Her simple tunic belied her role, but her eyes betrayed her fear. She was to walk into the arena as the king's prize, the girl who could whisper too. The monster. She tightened her fists as she remembered the rebel's words. Today, or never, the arena roared with tens of thousands of voices, sand shimmered in the noon sun, and at the center, the dragon lay coiled, its scales dimmed by chains of glowing crystal. The crowd gasped each time it shifted, and Lyra could feel its frustration pressing against her mind like waves against a shore. "Child," the dragon's voice growled. "Are you ready?" Lyra swallowed hard. "I am. Please, hold on just a little longer." The gates opened. Trumpets played. The king appeared on his dais, clad in black and gold, his crown gleaming like a weapon. He raised his hands, and the crowd erupted with cheers. "Behold," he shouted, his voice booming, "the dragon emperor bends to no man but today. It bends to me." Chains clattered as gods forced the dragon to rise, the beast's head lifted, eyes burning with hatred that no shackle could contain. Lyra stepped forward, her body trembling but her will firm. The plan was unfolding exactly as they had drawn it. Hidden in the crowd, Darren and the rebels moved like shadows. They carried no banners, no armor, only concealed blades and crystal. Disruptors stolen from the palace army. They waited for the signal. Lyra placed her hand against the dragon's muzzle. To the crowd, it looked like submission. To the rebels, it was the spark. The priest, seated among the common folk, whispered a prayer. The scarred soldier touched her blade. Darren tightened his grip on the disruptor until his knuckles whitened. Then it began. A god approached the dragon, lifting a ceremonial spear tipped with glowing crystal. As he thrust it forward, Lyra spoke not aloud, but through the bond that only she and the dragon shared. Now, the dragon's roar split the sky. The ground trembled as fire surged up its throat, contained only by the chain that burned against its scales. The crowd screamed, some in awe, others in terror. At that moment, Darren hurled the disruptor. It struck one of the restraint pillars at the edge of the arena. Light shattered in a burst of sparks, and one of the chains snapped free. The dragon reared, half loosed, and the air filled with heat. Guards scrambled, horns bled, and the king surged to his feet, his triumphant mask breaking into rage, treachery. He bellowed. Chaos spread like wildfire. Rebels revealed themselves, clashing with soldiers in the stands. Crystals shattered as more disruptors flew, and with each one, another chain broke. The dragon thrashed, its wings unfurling like storm clouds, its fire lashing against the sky. Lyra clung to its muzzle, whispering frantically through their bond, "Stay with me, please. Don't burn them all." The dragon's mind thundered with fury. "They caged me. They starved me. I will see there." Bones turned to ash. Lyra's tears streamed down her face. Not them. Not the people. Only him. The beast hesitated. The fire in its throat dimmed, but only slightly. The king drew his blade, a weapon forged of black steel, pulsing faintly with the same crystal light as the chains. He leapt into the arena with impossible grace for a man of his age, and grateful. "Child," he snarled at Lyra, "you would betray your emperor for a beast. Then you will burn with it." He charged. The dragon's head swung low, placing its massive body between Lyra and the king. Fire gathered again, hotter this time, a storm no chain could stop. Above the screams, the clash of steel, and the crackling of burning banners. Lyra knew there was no turning back. Today, the fate of Aeloria would be written in flame. The arena was no longer a place of celebration, it was a battlefield. Smoke thickened the air, choking the crowd as they stampeded for the exits. The clash of steel rang from the stands where rebels and guards fought desperately, blades flashing. Under the haze of fire dot at the center of it all stood the dragon, 3 chains shattered, one still clinging stubbornly round its foreleg. Its wings unfurled fully now, stretching higher than the arena walls, blotting out the midday sun. The shadow it cast sent shivers rippling through the people. Lyra pressed herself against its scales, her small figure dwarfed by the colossus. Through their bond, she felt everything rage boiling in its chest, pain from the burning shackles and something deeper, darker, a hunger for vengeance that could consume friend and foe alike. "Focus on me," she pleaded silently. "Don't lose yourself. Not now." The dragon's golden eye rolled down toward her, knowing. For the briefest heartbeat, the fury stilled. Then the king struck. His blade screamed through the air, catching the dragon's wing with a slice that sent sparks flying from scale and crystal alike. The beast roared in fury, the sound rattling the very stones of the arena. The king stood his ground, crown glinting, eyes fevered with triumph. "You call yourself emperor?" he bellowed, voice carrying above the chaos. "You are nothing but a weapon to be wielded by your betters." The dragon's fire surged up, ready to end him in a single breath. But Lyra's hands gripped its muzzle, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Not like this," she whispered. "You'll burn them all. He wants you to lose control." The dragon trembled, fire quivering in its throat. The king saw their hesitation, and he laughed, a sound sharp as shattered glass. "You hesitate, then. You are weak, both of you." He lunged at Lyra. Time slowed. Lyra's scream echoed in her own skull. The blade flashed closer, the king's eyes wild with hate, and then the dragon moved, darted through its head sideways, knocking Lyra out of the blade's path, and lunged forward with jaws wide. The king's sword struck the beast's snout, but it was not enough. Teeth like mountains closed round him. For a heartbeat, the arena fell silent. Then the king was gone, swallowed by fire and fury, his crown tumbling into the sand like a discarded trinket. The crowd gasped as one. Some cried in horror, others, the rebels among them, shouted in triumph. But the battle was far from over. The last chain pulsed with light, burning brighter as if the king's death had triggered some hidden failsafe. Energy crackled along its length, sinking deeper into the dragon's flesh. The beast writhed, its roar torn between freedom and agony. Lyra clung desperately, her body shaking with exhaustion. She could feel the chain trying to crawl up the dragon's very soul, to bind it forever. "No," she screamed aloud this time. "You won't take him. Not now. Not ever." She slammed her hand against the glowing crystal embedded in the chain. Pain shot through her arm, searing up her bones. But she didn't let go. She poured every ounce of her will, her bond, her love for the creature into that connection, and then the crystal shattered dot-like burst outward, a wave of raw energy sweeping across the arena. Rebels and soldiers alike were thrown to the ground. The dragon reared back, wings blazing like twin suns, its scales gleaming with unshackled fire. For the first time, it was truly free. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of flames. The dragon lowered its massive head to Lyra, breath washing over her like a furnace. Its voice thundered in her mind, not with rage, but with something softer. "You freed me, and I will not forget." Lyra collapsed against its muzzle, trembling, tears of pain and relief mixing on her cheeks. Round them, the rebels rallied, pushing the last of the guards from the arena. The crown lay forgotten in the sand, but above, beyond the ruined walls, the bells of the city rang. Armies would be coming. The death of the king was only the beginning. Lyra lifted her eyes to the horizon. Her hand still pressed against the dragon's scales. She understood now. This wasn't just about survival. This was war. And together, she and the dragon would lead it. The bells tolled like a dirge as the city of Aeloria reeled from the death of its king. Smoke from the arena drifted skyward, staining the heavens black. The once proud banners of crimson and gold hung in tatters. Scorched and torn by fire, for centuries the king's word had been law. Now, his crown lay buried in sand and ash. The people gathered in the streets, eyes wide with fear, and something dangerous hope. Whispers spread faster than flame. The king is dead. The dragon is free. The girl walks beside it. Lyra stood atop the arena's highest wall, her body battered, her hands still trembling from the force of shattering the final chain. Beside her, the dragon stretched its wings, their span blotting out the rising sun. Every heartbeat between them pulsed with newfound strength. Below, Darren and the rebels rallied survivors, their voices calling out promises of freedom, urging the people to rise. Soldiers who had once served the king faltered, lowering their blades. Without the crown to command them, many simply dropped their weapons and fled. But the city was not yet safe. From beyond the walls came the pounding of war drums. The king's generals, still loyal to the throne, were already marching with their armies. The festival's chaos had lit a fuse that could consume the entire kingdom. Lyra turned to the dragon, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. If we don't stand now, it's over. They'll chain you again. They'll bury us all. The dragon's golden eyes blazed like suns. Then let them come. I will show them what it means to face fire unchained. The battle was unlike anything Aloria had ever seen. The generals' armies poured into the streets, armored columns clashing with rebels, war horns drowning out the cries of the wounded. The city became a labyrinth of blood and fire. But above it all, the dragon's sword. Its roar split the heavens, and its flames carved lines of defiance across the battlefield, where the beast struck. Soldiers broke ranks. Where Lyra rode upon its back, rebels surged forward with renewed fury. She guided the dragon not toward slaughter, but toward breaking the will of the oppressors. Still, the cost was heavy. Streets burned, innocents fled, friends fell. Darren himself took a blade to the shoulder, refusing to leave the fight. This is it, he cried, blood staining his tunic. One push more, and the city is ours. The climax came at the palace gates. The last of the generals had rallied his men. There, holding the stronghold like a dying beast clinging to life, he raised the royal banner high, declaring that the king's bloodline would endure. The dragon landed before the gates, its talons splitting the marble, its wings folding like storm clouds. Lyra dismounted, stepping forward with the weight of destiny in her stride. No more chains, she said, her voice echoing across the square. No more crowns. This city belongs to its people now. The general spat at her feet. You are a child playing at rebellion. Without the throne, there is only chaos. Lyra raised her chin. Then let the people choose their own order. Let them decide their future. Not you, not a tyrant, not even me. The dragon lowered its head, fire curling between its teeth. The soldiers wavered, and then, one by one, they dropped their weapons. The banner fell into the dust. Aloria was free. In the days that followed, the city rebuilt. The palace was opened not as a throne, but as a hall where counselors, farmers, smiths, healers, even former soldiers debated the future. The people chose leaders among themselves, daughters for the dragon. It remained a symbol, not a ruler. It perched atop the cliffs overlooking the city, its presence a warning to any who would seek to enslave again. Lyra often stood beside it, gazing out at the horizon. The bond between them had grown into something unbreakable, two souls scarred by chains, united by fire and trust. One night, as the stars stretched endlessly above, she whispered to the beast. "What now?" The dragon rumbled softly, its voice warm in her mind. "Now, we watch, we protect, and if the world dares to bind us again, we burn brighter still." Thus ended the reign of tyranny, and began the legend of the dragon emperor, not as a king, but as a guardian, eternal and free. The people of Aeloria would tell the story for generations of a girl and a dragon who chose freedom over chains, who burned away the old world to build something new. And as the stars wheeled overhead, the dragon's roar carried across the night sky, no longer a cry of rage, but a song of hope